What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining us here on this new series, Leaders in Racing, right here on Racing America. I'm Alan Cavanna, and we are happy to be joined by a longtime leader in the sport of NASCAR, Ty Norris. Ty, thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for inviting me on. I enjoy talking about the last 35 years.
Yeah, well, we'll cover it all, and that's because you have, a lot of experience in leadership. Your current title, let's start with there. Chief Business Officer with Kaulig Racing, your first year over at Kaulig. Now, a lot of people, of course, we think the competition side of NASCAR, but the business side of it, just as important. How do those two things gel, being on top of the business end and where that goes with the competition side?
Well, there's probably a period of time in the last 10, 15, 20 years where it started out racing was only competition, and business was sort of an afterthought. I would say the trajectory of those two passed a few years ago. You can't run a business, you can't race without the business side, without having a strategy, without having the proper structure, communications. Um, Ultimately, finding sponsors and partners and revenue and putting yourself in position to to gain manufacturer support, alliances, and then ultimately having people believe in you. So you got to have people believe in you. So that means drivers, that's personnel, it's sponsors, manufacturers, it's the sport, it's NASCAR, it's all that. And the only way to do that is on the business side. So, I feel, the business competition in the boardroom is maybe even as vicious as it is on the racetrack. And if you can win the business in the boardroom, it gives you an opportunity to succeed on the racetrack. And so, yeah, they're very much aligned. I've always been a team president, executive, general manager, and one is not possible without the other. The competition guys need the business guys need the competition guys. And when you have been around as long as I have, you understand enough of both sides and how they blend. And that's what a chief business officer does, is what business in racing does for these race teams.
Being with Kaulig now, what kind of culture do you want to bring there? What do you want to grow at Kaulig?
Well, one of the first things last summer, I got approached by Chris Bryce and Matt Collig, probably around June of last year. We were working very closely together with SVG over there at Collig, and while I was at Trackhouse, and we just started having conversations about where they're trying to go, what they want to do, and ultimately, what led me to them is I flew to Cleveland. I sat down with Matt and Chris, and Matt asked me, he's like, what would you change? What would you do? And I said, well, here are the five things I would hit right off the top of my head. And he said, well, I'm game to do them. And they required an investment. They required some commitment. They required certain things that only people of his means can do. And what I loved about Matt Collig was that, he doesn't, he's not in search of investors. He is an investor. And so he has the means if he wants to do something, he has the means to make the moves he needs to make. And that was very, very refreshing. So I love the vision that he has for it. One of the things that we discovered in my time up there with him, when I went to his office, he had rhinos everywhere. And I was like, I don't understand, where does this infatuation with rhinos come from? And he said it's called the rhino mentality. He had read that in a business book a few years ago, and it's about always charging forward. It's always about having thick skin and not letting things slow you down and always moving forward. Rhinos don't move backwards, they don't back down, and they are always charging. So I was very, very inspired by that. And as I look at Kaulig Racing now, I look at them very much in that Rhino mentality that's being adopted by the owner. And and we have a lot of opportunity here, a lot of area to grow and a lot of opportunity. And I would say the expectations have not been extraordinarily high entering the season from the outside, but they were high from the inside. And we're meeting them. We have a lot of speed, we've got great people. The attitudes are better. People are positive about the future, and if we can just keep that positivity going, then the sky's the limit for an organization like Kaulig with the means of Matt Kaulig and the passion that he has for the sport.
I want to bring up one particular scenario just from this season that you faced as a leader. There were some engine issues going on with Colleague, and one of them became very public. We heard AJ Allmendinger's radio. People heard his thoughts on that. Now, when that happens, Ty, how you react to that could go, how you react to that particular situation could send the team, I feel like, in two different directions, right? There
Yeah.
is a legitimate competition issue, but you also have to keep your business partner and supplier happy and appease them as well. How did you approach that when it kind of went public, probably when you didn't want it to?
Well, the thing about AJ is he's dyed in the wool Kaulig. He's not just about the 16 team. He's about everything that's going on. And this year has been a very, very rough year for Kaulig Racing from the engine side. The 16 Xfinity car has had at least two catastrophic failures, if not three or four other failures. We've had multiple other smaller things that continue to bite us, move us to the back. We've had, power steering belts pop off, just multiple things that have been building up, and we have been trying to keep, as a group, trying to keep all of the positivity going for all of our drivers, not just on the cup side. And then, AJ blew up in the biggest race of the year. We qualified in the top 10, the Daytona 500, and 30th lap, we had an engine failure. Didn't even make it to the first stage. Pretty devastating. And then, we had a similar situation, same situation happened in Kansas. We terminated engine seventh lap. So it was a lot of buildup, and when he released it, obviously it we would rather him not push the button when he says that. But here's what he was doing: he was fighting for all those mechanics, all those people who were working all those hours. We don't have key partner funding, we don't have key partner resource. We end up having to, you know beg and plead and borrow and move and things around, and we're competitive when we get to the racetrack, and we're fast and we're competitive, and these guys are working multiple hours and working on different cars all night, and for that to happen multiple times was just an unacceptable moment. And I would say that the ECR guys have agreed that it's an unacceptable result. But the great thing about what AJ did was we grabbed him and said, look, don't back down. If this is how you feel, don't back down. Like,
Hmm.
we have no problems with you, having some conversations with our supplier about this. Obviously he didn't want it to be any more public than we wanted it to be public, but we don't want him to just shrug his shoulders and act like everything's okay, because it's not. It's too freaking hard. So we sat down, Richard Childress sat down, Mike Verlander, we sat down with Bob and all the guys at the engine shop, and every one of them, they put an army on this. They put an army on it to make it better. And they just committed continually. They doubled down to commit, regardless of the words, the temper, and the things that happen, to commit to make it better for Kaulig Racing. And our first time back, we go to Charlotte, and we run top six all night, finish top four in a 600-mile race where engine means a ton, car means a lot, driver means a lot, and decisions and strategy and pit crews. And so, ECR stepped up, did an amazing job for us. And whether or not that moment was wanted, it happened, and we managed it by saying, don't back down, bring your passion every week, and let us work on getting this thing better.
A unique approach. Not every team would do that.
Well, I mean, I don't think we're like every other team. I think that Matt gives us a lot of freedom to um, to be a little different, and so I'm not saying that we would be we don't. It's not in our DNA to be that vocal. But one thing we will do is we will die on the hill of our drivers who are putting in that kind of effort. And Chris Rice and I talk about it all the time. We will go to battle with these guys, and if that's how they felt, then it's up to us to fix the issue, and that's what we've been addressing.
How can team leadership really help shape where NASCAR goes? Maybe in term whether it's influence or throwing in their opinion about tracks, car changes, things like that. How can team and team leadership weigh in on that now?
Well, I think what I have seen over the last 12 years, maybe even not that long, is the respect that has been given to the team leaders from NASCAR. One of the greatest things that's happened to our sport is Steve Phelps being named the president and now the commissioner. Um, Steve is just, he's a great listener. He's a great friend, and he has created an avenue for us to have a voice. We have team owner councils, we have separate subcommittees. Very few things are done without multiple conversations, whether it's with the driver council, whether it's with the ownership or with the executive teams. There are presidents' meetings that are happening constantly. Um, he and the group there, between O'Donnell and Elton Sawyer, has been doing an incredible job. John Probst. These guys will sit there and listen to you, and they'll have a conversation. And multiple times we talk about, little things, and then sometimes we talk about big things. And ultimately, NASCAR has to make the ball and strike call. And we may not agree with everything, but quite honestly, all the teams don't agree. We all run different businesses. Hendrick Motorsports is different than Gibbs. Gibbs is different than Roush. Roush is different than Kaulig. So we all have different businesses. And so we're not all going to be completely aligned. So NASCAR has to just take all the information and then ultimately make the call. I lived in an era where that didn't happen. I lived in an era where Mr. France or Bill Jr. Mr. France Jr. would come over and say, "This is what's going on. If you don't like it, don't show up." Same thing with, and that was the way, uh, Mr. Helton was driven by that. We're the league, and we're gonna be the ones to tell you what to do. And I just feel like in time, um, since Jim France has taken over, Mike Helton has taken on this chairman's role, and what's going on with Steve Phelps. It just seems like the entire NASCAR industry now has a voice and an opportunity to walk in that trailer, not uncomfortable walking in that trailer, having a conversation about anything. And so I think NASCAR leadership has enabled team leadership to have a louder voice than it's ever had in the history of the sport.
A big part of your history was working with Dale Earnhardt, the man himself, Dale Earnhardt
Yeah.
Incorporated. We know him, or most of us know him, right? Or know of him as the competitor, the intimidator, all that stuff, the race car driver. You knew him as team owner, team leader. What did you learn about leadership from Dale Earnhardt? A lot of people ask questions about driving. What did you learn about leadership from him?
The biggest thing I learned from him was that he was the valedictorian of the University of Common Sense. And it didn't take a degree from Kellogg's Business School to run the race team. It just took a lot of common sense to sit down and have a conversation with people. And Dale, when I first met Dale when I was a sports writer, and he was that intimidating figure. In 1990, I went to work for RJ Reynolds, and we started working closely together. He was the champion, and I was representing the series sponsor. And in 1990, he started saying, "You're going to come work for me someday. You're going to come work." I have no idea why we became friends. We started vacationing together. We started doing a lot of things together, and it was through all those times sitting on the boat, fishing, riding around the farm, whatever we were doing. Those are the times when you start to learn about sort of people's visions. When they're visionaries, what are they trying to accomplish? I always told him, "I'm your soldier. I'm your number one soldier. I'll go to war with you, for you, whatever. Just tell me where you want to go, and I'll get you there." And I've always told him, I said, if you don't like the decision, tell me what decisions you didn't like and why you didn't like it, and I'll learn from that. If you just don't like the decision maker, just change the decision maker. And fortunately, as long as he was around, that didn't happen. But yeah, just the one of the other things he hated drama. absolutely hated drama. And he was never afraid to walk away from a hard conversation. When it was a hard conversation, he ran towards it. And that taught me it's almost like that firefighter mentality. You see a fire, run to it, don't run from it. And so I was taught that from him. That like when we would have situations where, I remember Tony Uri Sr. and I got into a very, very very loud argument in the middle of the shop floor. Dale grabbed us both, put us up there, and he said, "I don't want to hear your side. I don't want to hear your side." He goes, "You guys talk right here in front of me, and then we'll get this resolved because I don't want to hear a he said, she said." And so he just was like, "I'm past all the drama." And it taught us to like don't let these things fester, just hit it right between the eyes. Some people don't aren't comfortable with that. Some people aren't comfortable with hearing that. People aren't comfortable with having that tough conversation, but I am. I don't I'm not afraid to have it. I'm also not because I'm not afraid to be wrong. And I can be convinced otherwise, but yeah, you just that what he taught me was back down from nothing, if you truly believe in it, but just approach everything with respect and common sense, and everything. These things generally work themselves out.
What did you learn about leadership in the worst of times, February 2001, and those couple of years afterward? What did that teach you about leadership?
Well, I wish in that era that I had the experience now, or I wish I had the experience then that I have now, because in that period of time, it became Game of Thrones. It became a little bit of like who's in charge, who's going to get to say who's going to set the direction, who has the final word. And there were multiple people who were like sort of positioning themselves for that role. Many of us felt we deserved it and earned it. But in the end, at the time, like, you used to just have to, I should pound my fist and say, this is what we're going to do. And I saw this in a Ronald Reagan quote. He said, the government is at its best when it realizes that it is not the master, that it is the servant. It's the servant to the people. And so as a leader, what I learned through those hard times is I wasn't ready to be the servant. I was trying to be the master. And in my time now, I understand it's really about hiring good people, putting them in the right place, resourcing them, and servicing them. So what do you need from us? What do you need from us to be better while you do your great work? And I did not have that when after Dale's accident, and it became part of the demise of what was a great organization. Too many people not trying to be servants, everyone trying to be a master.
Going forward, in terms of whether it be driver star power or brand star power, what do you think Kaulig is capable of, NASCAR in general? Where do you want to see as one of the leaders in this sport?
Well, I see tremendous youth coming into our sport right now. And I don't mean just as a driver. I go through the grandstands all the time. I walk around. I continue to, I don't know where the narrative is about this sport and it's aging and how everyone's, getting too old. I go to these races and I walk through the grandstands and I see kids everywhere, f- couples, families everywhere, and ethnicity and all these things. And it just makes me so proud of the direction the sport is going. So I think, some of these international races, although they're very, very difficult logistically, I think they're very important for the growth of the sport internationally. I think we have a lot of areas in the United States we can still touch, the upper Northwest and other areas where we're not necessarily giving it, bring as much impact to the domestic product as we should. But as far as where Kaulig is, we have one of the youngest owners who has as much passion for this sport and sports and entertainment as anybody I've met. He has the means. He's a very successful entrepreneur. He knows how to tie in. He's a part owner of a Major League Baseball team, of the PGA golf event. He's part of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. All these things, that all these different sports and entertainment entities that all kind of come into this. And I just think Kaulig Racing's future is extraordinarily bright because he wants to be here. Um, and if we do all the right things, we earn our place in the eyes of as a key partner. If we earn that position, then we become the destination. And that's all I always talk about. Right now we need trajectory to become a destination for sponsors, for manufacturers, for drivers, for key employees. And that's what we're focused on. I think the sky's the limit for this team.
Ty Norris, thanks for joining us here on Racing America.
All right. Thank you, Alan. Appreciate it.